Okay. Hello, everyone. Can see more folks are still joining here. Good afternoon. Okay. Steadily climbing here, so we might have some folks still hopping on. Welcome, everyone. We might have a couple academic advisors sitting in also, just to hear everything again. Okay, great. All right, so we'll get started. I'm Carrie Espinosa. I'm one of the Associate Deans of Students in the college. Um, I'm also director of the College Academic and Student Services Office, so I work closely with these fine folks to put together your math placement results. Just a couple quick housekeeping items as we get started. The math placements, if you took them on time, have posted. You can access those in your My U Chicago portal. Um, there are some placements that you will have noticed haven't posted yet. Chem is running a little bit behind. And if you are a heritage learner in Spanish, those results are running a little bit behind. Everyone else should have received their placements. Um, if you have taken them late, that's okay. We know sometimes that happens. So, we are monitoring throughout the summer, every 3 weeks, reposting and checking for new material. That could also be the case if you took maybe part one and part two of the math placement, but didn't take part three on time. That's okay. We'll catch that coming in. Please do that as soon as possible if you haven't. Um, a couple other things. There are a small number of students who have not claimed their CNET IDs and use Chicago email addresses. If you have not done that, please make sure you do that. We cannot add you to the placement exams until you have done that. But again, we can monitor for that and catch those results as you do take them late. Um, for now, I'm going to pass it off to John to introduce all the members of the math department that are here today. And we will have a Q&A option for you here and be watching for that as well. All right,
All right.
you're up.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. So the Carrie, as she just introduced herself, works in the dean's office in the college. The rest of the four of us here are in the mathematics department. And I want to introduce everybody in just a second, but let me say one thing first, that we are the mathematics department, not, let's say, the statistics department or the computer science department or other related departments. We do administer the placement test and give all the advising and so on. And part of that is because, well, something like 95% of you, based on past statistics, are going to take math courses. You might also take stat, computer science, and so on, but the vast majority of you are going to wind up taking math courses, and that's why we have this whole math placement process. Um, but having said that, questions about statistics and computer science generally should go to those departments and not directly to us. Okay, let me introduce my team. I think I have the honor of doing this because I've been here for over 20 years. And I think although Sarah has been here close to the same amount of time, I've been doing this part of the job of doing placement for longer than anybody else on the team. So I will start by introducing, just in seniority at the university, Sarah Ziesler, our Director of Undergraduate Studies.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm Sarah Ziesler. For the most part, you're likely to be dealing with the other three people here because they're more directly involved with placement issues. But people are always welcome to reach out to me if they have kind of general questions about any process.
Thank you, Sarah. My second longest tenured colleague, somewhere to whatever that is, Professor Yitka Stenova. She's the other co-director of undergraduate studies with me.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say welcome to you, Chicago. I think we are probably one of the first professors that you get to interact with before you step on campus in a month and a half or so. So I will not talk for too long because we have a lot of information to share with you. But just to give you a heads up about the setup of the webinar, we have a PowerPoint presentation that will explain a lot of things already. And then we will have live Q&A, and you can already start putting your questions in Q&A if something comes up as we are presenting the slides to you. But I think it will answer a lot of your questions just on those slides. And with that, I will give it back to Professor Boller to introduce the last member of our team.
Right, to introduce the our newest colleague, Professor Santiago Cañas.
Yeah, hi all, welcome. Definitely an exciting time for you all, and absolutely one of my favorite times of the year when you're all, deciding on courses and reaching out to us for assistance. Definitely something I look forward to. So welcome all.
All right. Well, with that, then, thank you, Santiago. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Yitka. Yitka and I are probably going to be doing the majority of the talking here. So, but let me just say one or two more words before she gets down to the technical side of the business, which is welcome. Really, that I think that everybody else has been saying. Congratulations on getting into the University of Chicago. We are very excited to get started. Except getting started on the quarter system takes a minute. So we've got this long run up of getting all these placements and advising and sorting everybody out and setting the teaching lineup and all the things that we do during the summer to get ready. But classes don't actually start till the end of September, so we've still got close to 2 months. But that means a lot of these things that we're telling you about, you've got time to think, but you've also got time to plan in terms of taking a higher level test or something like that, or to get advice from one of us, and so on. So there's plenty of time to get this done. But we're glad you're here now. The other thing I'll say, though, is that although there are over 140 of you participating here today, there's over 2,000 of you who are in the new class. So you got to ask the questions on behalf of all of your colleagues so that it'll be all the information will be there on the recording when your 1,800 plus colleagues join come back and look at this video. Make sure you've asked the questions on their behalves as well.
Great, John. I think with that said, why don't you start sharing the PowerPoint? So there's already some questions that those questions will be answered in just a few slides. So just wait. It's going to come up in about 10 minutes.
Okay, so let's try sharing. And at the power, okay. Share, did that work?
Yeah.
It seems to have worked. Okay, good.
And then you can slide from the slideshow from the beginning.
Slideshow.
Play from the start on the left.
Play from the start. There we go. Look at that.
Okay.
So, official University of Chicago logo. This is our math placement meeting for the 2026-2027 academic year. Even as we're getting started here, first, well, where's that? No. What if I go there? There we go. You've now met the four of us. Carrie, sorry, your information isn't on this slide, but the other four of us in the room, this is the way to be in touch with us. Those email addresses, we're easily findable on the U Chicago directory, but nevertheless, in case you want to actually email us right now, then that would be a good thing to do. For example, we're going to suggest that those of you who are not just worried about your placement, but maybe possibly about a math major, get on the math mailing list. And the way you do that is by emailing me and Professor Spurgeon. Should I leave this for people to actually copy anything down or take a screenshot?
No, I think you go ahead because this
let's
is
just move ahead.
easily accessible.
Okay, let's get to the good stuff. Okay. Well, having introduced the four of us, three of us have specific roles in terms of doing advising. And we kind of divide it, calling it levels isn't quite right. It's more categories. So I tend to do, well, I'll do it in order here. Professor Stenova Spurgeon does the calculus and the other two courses, 112 and 113, that we'll say more about in a minute. But the Math 130s and the Math 150s are two essential brands of calculus. Professor Cañas does what we sort of think of as the service courses, the courses that people who might be majoring in engineering or physics or statistics or economics or public policy, where they need to take more math than just calculus. And so we have specialized courses that are designated for folks in those majors. And then I take sort of the third chunk, as it were, which is the more I guess proof-based courses. So that would include our Math 159 course, our honors calculus sequences, and then the higher level courses like analysis, algebra, and the things that make up the math major. And so that's just a matter of dividing up the workload among the three of us. But so that's if you have a question for one of us and you know what your major is, you might be better placed in terms of making a decision of which of us to be in touch with. We will, in terms of these advising and all that's going to go on. We do. The quarter doesn't start till the end of September. We do most of the advising in the middle of September. So please hold off, I guess, in some sense, especially if because I mean we also take vacations in August. But yeah, there will be two more tests that we'll talk about, and those are in early September. And then we start doing the heavy load of the placement advising and adjustments, because that's another thing that the three of us can do for you is actually make a placement change for you up to a certain point. And then that's going to start in the middle of September on the 14th. But then there's a catch-all email address that we call mathadvising@UChicago. And it's a number of us have access to that, and through that you can set up an appointment. I would just reiterate that it is math advising, not statistics advising or computer science advising. It's really just the math department. Even though those other things are still in the mathematical sciences, they are not the math department. But you can set up an appointment, and we're doing those still by Zoom because you won't be here on campus yet either by September 14th.
I'm just gonna jump in before Professor Boller goes to the next slide. The reason the deadline is September 14 is that we actually need to access the database. Go back, John.
What happened?
Just go back.
No, go on. No.
Yeah. And the database does not become active for us until the September 14 for the first year's incoming students. We actually cannot help you to change the placement or put you in the right class or anything else, change the sections until the September 14, where at 7 a.m. in the morning, the database goes live for us and we can start meeting with you and making all those adjustments. All right, John, this is yours. I'll take the next one.
Here we go. So this is the University of Chicago mathematics course tree, and it's hand drawn. Sorry about that. That's I drew this sometime a few years ago. Probably should try to update it but it was just the way it made the most sense to me. Let's pick a color here and try to illustrate something here. The way you should think of this though is hopefully, I don't know if you see a tree there. It's like a Rorschach test, but if you should think of it from the roots up, right? So you are at the ground level of this. You're at the earth level of the earth, and the bottom two things that have happened, well, only one of them's happened so far, is online placement. You did an online placement test already. And then there's a possibility of another test called the higher level placement test, which again, we'll talk about in a few minutes. But that's the brown part down here, right? You did the online placement test. There's another test that you may or may not have been invited to called the higher level test. In fact, there's a third test called the Calculus Accreditation test, which we can also talk about in a few minutes. But that's the starting point. But what are the results of this first test? And before I talk about the results of the first test, I think I need to talk about our course structure a little bit more. So I'm going to move up and change the color. The stuff in green here is calculus. So Math 131, 132, 133 is a 3/4 sequence in calculus. Differentiation, integration, sequences in series, a little bit of multivariable. 150s, 151, 152, 153 is another version of standard calculus. The main differences between those two is that 150s, the test will have demonstrated to us that your pre-calculus is generally excellent. The 130s is for, well, maybe your pre-calculus is a little shaky. And so that has extra time built into the course so that you are actually meeting for 6 hours a week rather than 3 hours a week. You have designated assistants to help you with those extra 3 hours to make sure that we get through everything we need to get through and still accomplish all of the calculus. It's not a pre-calculus course, the 130s. It's calculus with time built in to help reinforce pre-calculus. The Math 160s are another version of calculus over here. So I think of these three green, well, trunks. Those collectively make the trunk of the tree. 160s is honors calculus. There are two varieties of honors calculus. One is one we call regular, one we call IBL, which stands for inquiry-based learning. Both varieties are by invitation. One thing that you do not get is placement into the Math 160s. You get an invitation to the Math 160s. We would not want to force honors calculus on anybody. But why might you choose it? You might choose it because even though you might have already had an AP 5 or have done some calculus, and maybe you've done really well on your calculus up to this point, maybe you've got a very high level placement, but honors calculus is the way we think of the math major as beginning. And in fact, we expect that at the end of the day, probably some 300 or more of you will actually wind up taking honors calculus. Again, we think it's the best route into the math major, but we also think it's the best way to really see mathematics done at the college level. In the spirit of the core, which for the college, you're meant to experience different disciplines and the way that those disciplines really operate, whether that's a lab science or an essay course. But in math, it would be a proofs course. And so that would be something like honors calculus. Instead of asking you to calculate the derivative of something, we want to prove that the derivative has certain properties. Instead of asking you to use the mean value theorem, we want to prove the mean value theorem, et cetera, et cetera. So would you be starting over again with your calculus experience by taking the 160s? Yes, you might, but you'll be seeing it from a completely different perspective and a really, really exciting one. Anyway, those three then are the main paths through calculus that we offer at the University of Chicago. And it's really four because the Math 160s, again, has two varieties. Let's talk about, again, a few more courses near the bottom for the moment. Math 112 and 113 over here are a couple of very lovely specialty courses that do not involve calculus. So 112 covers some number theory, 113 does some geometry. They're great little courses. They are for people who don't need calculus in their major. They just need to satisfy the core requirements at the university. I need to take something in the mathematical sciences. These two would be a nice option if you don't feel like doing calculus. Now, huge numbers of majors on campus do require calculus, so the vast majority of people take one of the three calculus sequences. But if you know you're going to be a history major, an English major, or some language major, or something like that, and you know what? I did some calculus in high school. It was fine, but I don't want to do it again. Those two might be a nice option for you. And because there are no statistics or computer science professors in the room at the moment, let me at least mention that if you are in that boat of maybe not needing calculus for your major, there are also other ways of satisfying the core requirement that include courses in statistics and computer science. So if you're not taking calculus, there are a number of different options for the math core. These are our two. Stat and computer science also have other options. Okay, finally, there is one other course that I need to mention in terms of placement, and it's down at the bottom. It's this 105. This one is, in fact, a pre-calculus course. 105 is, you know, I think something like maybe 20 or 30 of you got a placement into 105, and it indicated to us that your pre-calculus needed more work than we were going to be able to provide in the Math 130s. 105 is the unique course on this list that does not satisfy the core requirements. So don't take it just because you want to check the box on your math core. The reason to take 105, the only reason to take 105 is so that you can then take the Math 130s, right? You need calculus in your major. Great. Whether that's policy or science or economics, etc. But we, based on our placement test, think you need help with your pre-calculus first. Great. That's why we've got 105. 105 is a 1/4 course that then leads to a 131 in the winter and a 132 in the spring. So you're 1/4 behind, as it were, in terms of getting through calculus, but you're on a solid path that will get you through calculus basically by the end of your first year. There's a 133 that wraps around to the autumn if you need that. Not every major needs that, but some majors do. And so, okay, great. Let's take 4 quarters of math instead of 3, and you'll be in the right place for what your major requires. So, having said all that about calculus and the non-calculus options, let me talk about the placement. There are 5 essential placements that you could have gotten on the basis of that first online test, and then 4 sort of in-between placements. But let me talk about the 5 first, because the other 4 are based on the first 5. All right. These are indicated with, let's see, I guess I'll change the color again. The placements I'll do, I don't know, in orange. So one placement you might have gotten, well, I'll work up, I guess. So one placement might be into 105. 105 is that pre-calculus option. Another placement you might have gotten is into 131, because your pre-calculus is okay, we think still needs some work, but another placement you might have gotten is into 151, where now we're saying, no, we really do think your pre-calculus is okay, but let's just get you started in our calculus sequence. 152 is, hey, not only is your pre-calculus okay, but we think your first quarter calculus, all that stuff on differentiation is pretty okay. And then the 5th and highest, I suppose, level placement is into, oh yeah, a bunch of options. 153, not only is your first quarter calculus pretty good, but so is your second quarter calculus. You maybe got a 5 on the AP. Integration's good. All those techniques of integration, all those applications, right? Great stuff. But that opens other doors for you. If you are placed into third quarter calculus, and really I think of it as being placed out of second quarter calculus, there are other options that include things like 150-250, which is a multivariable calculus course with an emphasis on optimization. That course is for the standard econ major. And so where a standard multivariable calculus course might do all the theorems of vector calculus, this one focuses more on derivatives and gradients and all of that, partial derivatives, but then optimization problems, right? Lagrange multipliers and things like that, things that economists really need. 183 is the beginning of our 4-course sequence for scientists, right? So that's an introduction to linear algebra and some of those other topics in multivariable calculus. I'll let Professor Kanyas talk a lot more about that in a minute. And then finally, 196 is also an option. That's actually a linear algebra course that does not, strictly speaking, need much calculus in it. But your calculus is good, so you're ready to start at a course like that if you wanted to do it. I think the econ department actually recommends that you take the 150-250 first, but you would at least be eligible to take 196-20, the linear algebra course. So that 5th placement really is a menu of 4 options at least. So those 5 things. So base the 105, 131, 151, 152, or the top placement, which includes 4 things. There are 4 then what we call gray zone, sort of, at least internally, we call it a gray zone placement, which is sort
John,
of
that's on the next
placement.
slide.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, okay, we'll save that then. But there are, you could be sort of on the cusp in between 2 of those, in which case you would actually have an option between them. But most of you, the vast majority of you, have one of those 5 placements. While we're on this slide, let me say a couple other things. So when I drew this picture, a solid line meant a prerequisite, and a dashed line meant an invitation. So some of you, like I said earlier, will have gotten an invitation to a higher level test. There's another test that you can take, because maybe you actually do know some multivariable calculus, or maybe you do know some proofs, or maybe you know some linear algebra already. And so that's what that higher level test opens new doors, right? There are suddenly more options if you take that test in September, and we'll talk about that on another slide as well. But that opens doors potentially to, well, a proofs course like 159.10. It might, and again, we think a lot of you, if you're interested in theoretical math, should take the 160s. But maybe you really do know how to do some proofs already, and you're ready to start our second year courses, our analysis sequences. So that could be something like 203 analysis. That could be something like 207 honors analysis, right? So success on that higher level test in early September could open higher level placements to you. But you might already have an invitation dashed line to the 160s. In which case you might not even need to take the higher level test. If you want to take The 160s, this honors calculus, wonderful. We love to have you. This is one of our favorite courses. But then you don't even need to take the higher level placement test because you might already have an invitation directly from the first test that you already took. So again, just in terms of our language and the things that you might see on your placements, you should have one of 5 placements or potentially one of the 4 in-between ones. And you might have invitations. You might have an invitation to the honors calculus. You might have an invitation to the higher level placement test. And with that, I'm going to catch my breath.
You might have invitation. Yeah, I will take over. You might have invitation to 183 as well. Some of you.
There's a subtle one. Yeah, that even if you don't have a placement into 183, you might have an invitation to 183.
Okay.
You're not obligated to accept an invitation.
I'll let Professor Boller catch his breath a little bit. And before I will hand it over to Professor Kanyas to talk about that 4-quarter physical science sequence a little bit, I'm going to tell you some rules because this page really is good for you to look at while I'm explaining rules. So number 1, whatever your placement is, that is what the system will allow you to bid and register on. So if you got placed to, let's say, 152, but you're thinking you want to be taking 153 instead, you cannot bid on it and think that you will get that course during the pre-registration resolution because the system will only register you for the course and placement you have. So if you are thinking that you will need the change of placement, you still need to bid on whatever placement you have at that point, and then wait until September 14 and try to petition for change of placement. Change of placement is not automatic. Some of you will be allowed to change placements, and we will either move you up or drop you down, but some of you will not be allowed to do that. It depends really what you have done on your placement test, your background, and so on. So don't come to those placement meetings thinking that, oh yeah, I will definitely get that course, or I'll definitely want to be dropped down because I don't want to be taking hard math, because you might be getting turned away and you still have to take that class that you placed into. Rule number 2, you will only get 1 level drop. What does that mean? You can only be dropped down 1 level from your original placement, meaning you place into 153, your only drop down is into 152. You will not be allowed to start in 130 sequence or 105 or anything else. You can only drop down to 152. You placed into 152, you can only go to 151. You will not be allowed to drop all the way down to 105 or 131. Only 1 level drop. Same thing, only 1 level go up. You placed into 151, your only move up is into 152. You cannot go from 151 to 186.20 or 183. Unless, of course, you miss the 3 parts of the placement test, and then in which case you meet with me. I will ask you to complete the placement test first, and then we meet again once I check your scores. Rule number 3, not all of these classes are offered every quarter. We say this to advisors over and over and over, but we have you guys here as the incoming first years. Take the math right away, your first quarter, autumn, because these classes may not be offered in the winter or spring, and you don't want to wait the full year, especially if you're econ majors and you need to start your econ sequences your second year. Specific classes that are only offered and you must start in the autumn are 151, only offered in the autumn. 161 and 161.10, the IBL version, only offered in the autumn. 131 is offered mostly in the autumn. We will have 2 sections running in the winter, but the people that have taken 105 have priority for registration. So you might not get in. If you have 131 placements, start in the autumn. 152 is offered only in the autumn and the winter, not in the spring. 153 is offered every quarter, so you're fine there. You cannot skip 161 and think that you can start with 162 in the winter. If you want to go honors calculus, you must start in the autumn. And we will talk about, and I will give it back to Professor Boller, whether to choose the honors or the IBL version. You don't want to be switching in between the 2 versions, between 1 quarter and the another. 133 is offered in the spring, we might have one section offered in the autumn, but only in the spring otherwise. So double check that schedule. If you're planning your courses ahead, take the math right away. Do not wait. Do not wait until winter. Do not wait until spring, especially if you're thinking about change of placements. The changes of placements for 90% of these classes must happen in the autumn. If one of you start emailing in a winter or spring telling us that, oh yeah, I think I forgot to take the math in the autumn and I also need to change the placement, the answer will be strict no. So do take whatever test you need to take and then start taking those math sequences in the autumn. The rules for college as well as for the math department. There is a 3-week change period at the beginning of each quarter called a drop. You can change the course as long as you have placement for it, or you petition for placement and it was approved within those 3 weeks. But for the math department, you can only change on your own during week 1. During week 1, you can add and drop whatever course that is within your placement on your own. During week 2 and week 3, you can only drop the course. You will not be able to add the course on your own. You will have to go through math department, specifically that math advising. That math advising address, that is mathadvising@uchicago.edu, is the most critical email address for the math department in terms of taking classes or in terms of changing placement. It's not just for these first-year classes, for any classes going forward in your second, third, and fourth year. You will need to email math advising if you're changing in a week 2 or week 3. You cannot do it on your own. The system will not allow you to do that. Okay. That said, I think we can give it over a little bit for maybe a couple of minutes. Professor Kanya Santiago, maybe if you want to say a few words about that 4-course sequence, because we have a lot of physicists in the room right now. And then we'll move on to the information about the gray zones and Calculus Accreditation Exam and the higher level exam.
Well, actually, just before you start in, Santiago, let me just say a little bit about the structure of this picture again while we have it. There are 2 sets of courses that we have that Professor Kanyas can talk about. But just so you see where they are in the picture, since I have control of that image right now, let me change the color yet again and say that, oh, we've got... I don't know, I'll do a lighter green. So there's a pair of courses here for the social scientists that are essentially the mostly economists. As you will not be surprised, Chicago is very popular, has the econ major is by far the most popular major on campus. That those 2 courses beyond calculus are the most important ones for economists and social scientists, but including some policy people and people at the Booth School of Business and so on. And then there's this 4-course sequence in the physical sciences, 183, 184, 185, 186 for engineers and scientists who need different kinds of practical applications of calculus and vector calculus and linear algebra and so on. So those are those 2 bunches. The rest of everything else on here is essentially the math major, which is quite different, and I can talk more about that later. But for now, I'll hand it over then to Professor Kanyas to talk about those 2 sets of courses.
Yeah, thanks. So the Math 180s, the mathematical methods and the physical sciences, courses that were designed with input from these other departments in the physical sciences, engineering, you possibly know already, depending on your intended major, whether you're going to want to take one of these courses or not. But I'll say a couple of things. One, that even though the courses are called mathematical methods and the physical sciences, the actual content is mathematics. There's no actual physics background expected. Some things are motivated by physics, but the actual content is mathematics, covering standard topics in linear algebra, multivariable calculus, theories, differential equations. And so for that reason, I'll actually point out that it's not only physical science majors that take it, in particular stats majors. If you're considering majoring in statistics, or you're unsure, you might want to add on statistics later, you should consider the Math 183. Ends up being more courses you have to take if you do a stats major and don't do Math 183. Definitely something you should have in your mind right now as you're planning on what courses to take this fall. For example, I had issues last year with multiple students who took Math 153 and then later on decided they wanted to take a stats major, tried to come into the 180 sequence, in Math 184 beyond that first 183 course. That's not allowed. So be careful about what courses you're going to take in the fall with an eye towards what you might be interested in doing later on. the math 15250, 18620, as Professor Boulder said, are really, for the most part, taken by students who are doing econ. But again, I'll add econ, standard major, only econ, people who are doing econ, they maybe want to add stats or want to add something on top of that. Again, you should maybe discuss with me, but there's other options you might want to consider instead. Because this physical sciences courses, again, don't let the name fool you. There are courses that are taken by a lot of students that kind of fulfill different requirements. And if you have an eye eventually towards taking pursuing a major that will require part of those, you want to make sure you want to get started on the right track. Okay, yeah. With that, hand it back to Professor Boulder.
Sorry, lost my mute button there for a second. Okay, so questions about the tree? I don't know, or about the pathways here. I guess the
question between the difference between honors calculus and the regular IBL version and the regular version.
Sure. Let's say a little bit about that, right? So I have been saying that there are two varieties of honors calculus. One is quote unquote regular, and that is the way you can tell the difference between the two courses is in the tens digit of the 5-digit number. So regular is 16100, and the other one is 16110. So regular, 0 in the tens place, IBL, a 1 in the tens place. Regular means regular. It means there's a professor who lectures, and you do problem sets and you take tests. You take notes. It's a normal class, at least the way it's a lecture-based class. The book is fantastic. It's by Michael Spivak. We've been using it for years. It's really well written. It's got great problems, really good explanations. But it's a regular class, lecture-based class. IBL is completely different. Again, inquiry-based learning. What it means is that we give you, the student, materials. Here's the definition. Here's the theorem, but we don't tell you what the proof is. And you have to figure out why the theorem is true. And you're going to not only get to figure it out, you're going to come to class and present it. And you won't always get it right. So then your classmates will make suggestions for improvements and fixing the proof. And then maybe you even collectively don't get it right. And eventually the professor has to chime in and say, well, actually, did you think about this? But it's a much more dynamic class. The students are at the board basically the entire time. One of the other roles of the professor in such a class is to choose whose turn it is. Not everybody presents everything. Everybody takes their turns presenting things. But it's a very, very fun way to do this. It sounds scary, I realize, to probably many of you. But if you're up for it, it's one of the very cool things that you have as an opportunity here at the University of Chicago. Not everybody does classes like this. Both varieties are very popular. We have something like 7 sections of regular and 5 sections of IBL, right? So there's lots of students taking both. But the problem is, and I think Professor Stenova hinted at this, is that it's very hard to switch because while they both cover the same material, they cover them almost in backwards order from each other. And so if you get going down one path for 2 weeks even, it's probably too late to switch to the other. You're already lost. You haven't been doing the right things. And so you really kind of have to commit, and it's hard to tell whether you've made the right choice. I will admit that. They're both great in their own way. But somehow if you can tell by the end of week 1, oh, wait a minute, wait, let me try the other one. Like, that's the time to do it. It's like week 1, not week 3, even though we have that 3rd week deadline generally. Our statistics tend to tell us that both varieties do a very good job of preparing students for the next level of math courses like analysis or algebra and so on. That Math 203, the Math 207, the Math 257, and so on. Yeah, they're both great. But inquiry-based learning, right? You do most of the work outside of class. You come to office hours, you talk to your classmates. There's not much homework. The homework is to prepare for class. And then come in and take your turn presenting at the board. So it's a sort of a radically inverted way of doing a class, but it's pretty great. And other people around the world do it a little. Michigan does it. Harvard does it a little, but we do it a lot. And it's pretty great.
Okay, I think for the sake of time, we are already getting lots of questions. but I want to move to the next slide because a lot of you are asking how to interpret the placement that was posted on AIS and what are these gray zones and invitations. So John, could
Here we
you
go.
possibly move to the next slide?
Oh, now I
Okay.
gotta erase stuff. Oh no.
So John will erase and I will start talking. He already mentioned that Math 105, the pre-calculus, does not satisfy the core requirement for UChicago. So it is a prerequisite for Math 131, but it will not give you the core. So you need to still take more math classes to satisfy the core. But the gray zones and invitations, and what is the stuff that you see on your portal? So some of you will have one placement, some of you will have two placements, some of you will have two placements and invitations or three different things that show up. And how do you choose what's appropriate for you and how do you interpret what do you see? So the gray zones are basically the borderlines between two different placements. So you can see something, there's an example of the student here that receive a placement into Math 152 or 153, 152, 50, 183, and 186.20. What does that mean? Is that we determined that you were right on a cusp between the cutoff for the higher level placement and the regular calculus too. So you have a choice. You can start in 152, or you can also start in 153 or 152.50 or 183 or 186.20. Which of these basically 5 different courses you get to choose? It really depends on your major, whether you're econ, your standard math, and so on, and how do you feel about math. And if you have this gray zone placement, you can switch it on your own during week 1. So you can, let's say, start in 153 and you go to the class and you're like, oh boy, I have no idea what just happened. Let me go sit on 152 and maybe that feels more appropriate. And then you can switch the class on your own. It's only if you have this gray zone placement between the two different placements you can do it. If you only have placement into one or the other, you cannot switch it on your own. You can still switch up or down during week 2 and week 3, but you just have to go through us at the math department through math advising. Other than that, your portal might also say these placements in between two things and invitation. And that it can say placement into Math 152 and invitation to 183 and 161, or invitation to higher level exam, and so on. So again, how do you choose? Based on your major, number one, what major you are. Are you thinking you're going to be more physical science? Then you should think about taking 180s route. Are you thinking about econ? Then you should take 152.50, 153, 186.20. Are you thinking about math major? Then you should really aim for 160s. What if you're thinking about being double major? Like a student maybe wants to do math and economics. The advice that we will give you an econ department and statistics and computer science and almost every department on this campus is to aim as high as possible. 160s and analysis trump 180s and 150s. If you are econ major and you go through our 160s and end up in our regular analysis sequence, the econ department will take this over 152.50 or 153 or 196.20 or any other of those classes. If you're a physics major but want to try out 160s, your physics department will take the 160s and analysis sequence over 180s. If you are, let's say, combination of physics and econ, do you take 180s or do you take 152.50 and 153? You take 180s. 180s trump the 150s. It's the higher number course trumps the lower number course. So this is how you choose. You always have that option to sit on those classes during, it's usually better to do it during week 1 to figure out what feels the best and what is the route. If you're not sure, you're like, oh boy, I don't even know what major I want to be. Just go with your placement, get through that first quarter, get better feeling on the ground about UChicago and the quarter system and midterms and finals and everything else, and then decide. Okay, now, as I said, some of you will get a placement on your portal that says invitation to higher level exam. So the next 2 slides that we have before we will open the floor for all the questions are about something that we call Calculus Accreditation Exam and the higher level exam. So John, move. The first slide is about the Calculus Accreditation Exam. Rule number 1, No student should take both. In fact, if any of you will try to take both, you will get kicked out of both of them. You will not take both exams, either one or the other. Calculus Accreditation Exam. This is only for those of you that received the highest placement. So you got placed into Calc 3 or 183 or 186.20 or 152.50, and you do not need math for your major. Your English major, you don't need math. You just need to satisfy core, and you plan not to take math ever at U Chicago, ever. In that case, this exam allows you to earn credit for Calc 1 and Calc 2, thus satisfying the core requirement for mathematical sciences and get you out of the math requirement altogether. And you don't have to take any more math for your next 4 years of being at U Chicago. How do you register for this exam? The email invite will go to all students that have that highest placement. You decide if you don't need to take math. If you're taking a single math course at U Chicago, this exam is not for you. Any higher level math class, like let's say take 153, will give you back credit for 151 and 152. So if you plan to take math, exam is not for you. It's only for those of you with the highest placement that don't plan to take any math course ever. Then you go ahead, you fill out the Google form. Based on your answers in that Google form, we will enroll you in the Canvas course. And that exam is online, scheduled in a 24-hour period between Wednesday, September 2nd and Thursday, September 3rd for 100 minutes. You just have to sit down anytime during that 24-hour period. It's noon to noon, and take a 100-minute exam. There's going to be more directions and instructions about the Calculus Accreditation Exam in the email that will go out.
To be clear, it's noon to noon Central Time, Chicago time?
Yeah.
So if
noon
you're
to noon. Yeah.
on one of the coasts or foreign country, or be aware that we mean noon to noon Chicago time.
Yeah. It is graded, unlike the online placement that's graded automatically, this is graded by math professors, because there is going to be some multiple choice and also some free response that you have to actually write for us. And we will grade it, and we will email all the students on Tuesday, September 8th, or Tuesday or Wednesday, once we get all the results back. And either you will receive an email, congratulations, you passed the Calculus Accreditation Exam. Please take this email back to your advisor to get a back credit, and you satisfy the core, and good luck with all your studies here, because we will never see you in a math department. Or you will get an email, we are sorry to inform you that you did not pass the Calculus Accreditation Exam. Please plan on registering for the math class in the autumn quarter. Okay, so that's for the Calculus Accreditation Exam. The email will come out. We'll send the email the next 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. There's going to be 1,200 of you receiving that email, so just wait, okay? Then you will get enrolled in a Canvas course at the end of August. Read all the instructions and then take the exam. All right, the next slide is for the higher level. It's the higher level exam. Okay, that's the invitation. Not everyone gets this invitation. You have to have placement, the highest level placement, and you demonstrate it on that placement test that we actually think that you could start beyond the calculus. It's invite only, it's not mandatory. If you prefer to take your placement or the calculus and honors calculus 160s, go ahead and take it. You don't have to take the higher level exam. Again, the email will go out in the next 4 days. It will have a link to Google form. You need to fill it out, and you will get enrolled in a Canvas course at the end of August. I'll read all the instructions. The exam is again online, 24-hour period, September 2nd through September 3rd. It's 2-hour test, noon to noon Chicago time. It will have some multiple choice. It will have some free response. If you are planning to take the higher level exam, don't wait until September 2nd thinking that you can just jump on, take the exam, and fun. Read the instruction at least a couple days ahead. Test out that you have appropriate internet connection and so on. So we will not be able to help you during that 24-hour period. So you're not emailing us on September 2nd that your email or your computer crashed and you can't take that exam. You have one shot. Unlike the online placement that's open for a month and a half or so on, this is 24 hours, one shot at this exam, one. If you don't take it during the 24-hour period, you will not get a second chance. It is graded again by math professors. This is the reason, because we have to grade it by hand. And we will release the results to your portal and advisors by Tuesday, the September 8th. Your placement will change or not change if you don't do well. And we will then post on that Canvas course page the link to the higher level math webinar that will explain all these new placements to you and how do you register and so on. If you have a higher level math exam and you still have a placement, you can still bid on your placement and register for, let's say, 153. And then, because the higher level math exam is after the registration process is over, and that's okay. And if you get then higher level course, you will be dropped down from 153 and you will get a chance to, let's say, register for analysis and so on. So you can still go ahead and do the normal registration. But this is only one shot at Calculus Accreditation Exam, one shot at a higher level math exam. Not two. You cannot redo it. You cannot take it different time, only during this time, because it's the math professors that are only available to grade it in hand afterwards. Okay. Anything else that John you would
while
like
we're
to
talking
add?
about the higher level exam, there's a bunch of questions about the higher level exam. Please
Okay.
asking what it covers, right? So there's a little bit of calculus, but it's mostly the back end of calculus, right? So sequences and series, convergence, a little bit of analysis, some higher level multivariable calculus, some linear algebra, all the stuff that comes after calculus. Yeah, proofs.
Okay. The email will come out in the next 4 days. So we want to have this webinar first, and then you will get the email. Yes, there's a lot of things about back credit and stuff. Yeah, once you take the higher level, let's say you complete 153, you will get and that's your placement, you will get a back credit automatically for 151, 152. If you complete analysis, again, you will get a back credit for calculus, so you don't have to go back and retake that lower level class. Okay, John, maybe you can drop the PowerPoint and we can just go ahead and do the Q live NA. So we want to open the floor for Q&As right now, and we'll just take them one by one. We'll see what I think many of these were already answered by the slides.
Well, only because it's related. I saw there was a question about maybe for Santiago about the higher level exam and for engineers. Like why would an engineer, let's say, take the higher level exam?
So the higher level math exam, does not cover the same content as the Math 180s. I'll say that if you go ahead and look at, say, the requirements for the physics major, chem major, engineering major, you will see there that they, have these requirements where they have the Math 180s, or say the three-quarter sequence in analysis, Math 203, 204, 205. That's what the higher level placement exam would give you the option to take possibly, but it will not, automatically grant you credit for the Math 180s. Just that different majors accept other courses as with placements for those. I also saw a question about physics major deciding between the Math 180s, Math 160s. I would say it depends on kind of what your experience is, what kind of experience you want, what you intend to do maybe afterwards. If you're intending to take more math after the first year, it's not a question that maybe we can give a quick answer to. It would depend on your own kind of expectations and your own plans.
I'm gonna take it from top, maybe from all these questions.
I feel like is it okay? I feel like I might disagree. I'm kind of while we're talking about the higher level exam,
please.
There's still more
please.
questions about the higher level exam. So the question: do you recommend studying for the higher level exam? Anybody want to take that?
Not too much.
We want to see what you know, right? So if studying means going back and right, how do you do that? Don't come in like where you haven't thought about math for 3 months, but also don't try to learn something so that where you didn't actually take it in a course.
Okay, there is a question: how many students qualify for honors analysis? Incoming students, 2,314 of you. 11. Okay, that's how the higher level
not
math
strict.
exam
It might be 12.
Okay. Many, and there's another 10 or so or 15 that will qualify for accelerated analysis, and another 15 or 18 that will go into regular analysis. This is U Chicago. 11. Okay. What's covered in that? There was a question. What's covered in honors analysis? Whatever they want to. It's the single most difficult undergraduate class that you can take at the United States of America. There's no syllabus. It's taught by our research faculty and whatever they want. And you either die or you survive, and it will be the most glorious experience you ever had in your life. Okay.
Sarah, do you want to just, I feel like that
Yeah, maybe Sarah
I don't
should.
disagree, but that was maybe a hot take. Sarah, do you have a perspective on honors
Well,
analysis?
so I would say it's not entirely true that there's no curriculum. I think what's true is that there is a very basic curriculum, and people are pretty inventive in terms of what they do with that curriculum. But yeah, it's if you come in extremely well prepared, it can be an absolutely wonderful experience. But if you're not ready for it, it's a terrible idea. So this is not something that you want to be aspiring to get into just because it has like kind of bragging rights attached to it. You need to be in the right space for it to be a good fit for you, and then you'll have a really good experience. Otherwise, we have these other amazing opportunities. The honors calculus sequence is a fantastic place to start. It's where most of our math majors start by far. And then we have these other options of analysis, all of which can be really good places for people to start if that's where they're ready for. So I think, take the high level placement test, see how you do. But yeah, it's not going to be very many people for whom it's really appropriate.
There is a myth around honors analysis that I think, Professor Stanova's comments have helped to reinforce. But I mean, we have, look, we teach 95% of the entering students because everybody needs math practically. And University of Chicago is a very quantitative place, even if you're majoring in something that's not math itself, whether it's science, econ, et cetera. But we have a big math major. We graduate nearly 200 math majors a year. And how many of them will have taken honors analysis? About 25, 30, right? The vast majority of our math majors will have taken one of the other versions of analysis, regular, accelerated, et cetera, right? So, and those are great courses. Which brings me back to what all this is about. This is about placement. We are trying to find the right place for you. We don't want somebody getting in over their heads, and we don't want somebody taking a course they already know everything, right? That this is finding the right spot. And so a question about like, how do we know if you're ready for analysis? Well, for example, a regular second year student taking analysis will have come out of one of our proof-based courses. So we know what they know. And that really is the difference maker is, can you write proofs already for a regular analysis class? Yeah, you're already proving theorems on day one. That's how that's supposed to go. And how are you supposed to be ready to be able to do that? Well, I don't know. Maybe you took some fancy summer things or had a fantastic high school curriculum, or maybe you do know how to do proofs, and maybe you'll demonstrate that to us on the higher level test. But you have to know how to do proofs walking in the door for an analysis course. Do you have to know how to do proofs to take the Math 160s, the honors calculus? No, that's why we have the Math 160s, in order to teach you how to do proofs and how to think about mathematics from a theoretical perspective and ask the right questions and think about the implications of definitions and so on. So really, that's a huge divider, I think, among the people who are ready for analysis or not, is do you know how to prove theorems?
Okay, and there was a question, can I opt out of honors analysis?
No.
Can you place higher than honors?
So one thing we have not mentioned, Yeka, though, so far is transfer students, right? There might be a large number of transfer students here in the room right now, and transfer students, wow, it's hard to explain exactly what's going on with this curriculum and what does the placement mean and so on. And I would just say that if you are now there's hundreds of you too. There's I think it's like 200 transfer students. So, but I can't talk to everybody. But if you're a transfer student, we definitely want to take account of what work you have done before you got here. And so I answered that question about honors analysis. If you're coming in as a third year and you took, I don't know, Math 55 at Harvard, yeah, you're probably okay to skip honors analysis, despite our opinion, which course is harder. But but that is going to be one of you, not 20 of you, or there might be one of you out there who would be ready to do that, maybe.
Can I add
But quite seriously, just to finish the thought, if you have had a serious amount of mathematics before coming to the University of Chicago, I want to talk to you and let's find the right place to start.
Can I
Not
add something
until
to
September
that, John?
But
Yeah,
not till
September
September.
14.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think one of the things that it's really important for transfer students to know is that sometimes you don't get transfer credit for a course. Let's say you took a linear algebra class, but we didn't give you transfer credit. Does that mean that we're actually going to make you take a linear algebra class again? Almost certainly not. So that's exactly where you need the conversation with John.
Right. No, exactly. We value your experience, even if the course didn't match. We're very strict about getting credit for a course. It should actually match what our course teaches. It's not just because you had a course with the same title that covered some of the same things, right? That is one thing that, yeah. Often we hope that we'll at least have given you general elective credit for the course, even if it's not a match for the course that's in our major. But yeah, specifically with a course like linear algebra, if you've had some linear algebra, we want that to count in terms of prerequisites for other courses and so on.
There was a lot of questions. I think I just typed two about 3+1 plan for economics. So
I don't know
3+1
much about
plan.
that.
So your fourth year is getting the master's in economics. And if there is a math course, you should aim as high as possible if there is a minimum threshold. This is definitely a question for the econ department. You do want to start as high as possible. It will be best if you do have the highest placement. So I think that answers. There's a couple of you that wrote this. And then I am going to also take on, if you get placed gray zone 152 and 153, can you still be dropped down to 151? Yes. If you have that 152, if I see that 152 on your portal, then yes, you do get an option to be dropped down to 151. If you only have 153, you will not be dropped down to 151. And then what trumps what? Okay, I think there's a lot of like, what trumps what? Should I take 150s, 180s, 160s? So it's not that you get a back credit for, let's say, if you're a physics major, you take 160s, and then honors analysis that you get credit for 180 sequence. There are different paths through each of these majors, and physics department allows a path that involves 160s and the regular analysis in order to get a physics major. Same way that econ department allows a path through 180s to still earn the econ major, that you don't have to take 150, 250, and 153 and so on. So not that you get a credit for these classes, it's a different path. What trumps what? The 160s and analysis. If you just take 160s and you're physics, chemistry major, that's not enough to satisfy that 180 sequence. And Professor Kanyes would be the one that would really, someone that you would want to meet with. But if you take 160s and analysis and you complete that entire analysis sequence and our linear algebra, then that will be enough for the chemistry. And Santiago, please tell me that's not correct. That will be enough for the physics department to say, okay, this is fine. Don't take 180s. You don't have to go back and retake the 180s right now if you took a 160s and analysis. Same for econ. If you look at
sorry, but just to add, 160s alone is not enough though.
Yeah, 160s is not. You have to finish the analysis sequence.
That's
you
right.
have to get that second course, the 203, 204, 205 with vanilla variety and 20250. Same for econ department.
So just to say, I definitely spoke to students last year who took the first two quarters of the 160s and then decided they wanted to, do physics instead. And we had to have a discussion about where they should start. It was not a given that they were going to be able to skip all of the 180s. It depended on their background. So again, the kind of thing you want to be mindful of as you're picking those first few courses.
Okay, a lot of questions. How do the drop work? Like, how do you get drop from 152 to 151? What must be proven to be allowed to drop? So how does this work in general? First of all, September 14 deadline. You wait until September 14. If you email us before, and especially if you use our personal emails, we will not be happy, and we will remember the name. It will be red flag, and you will not get to meet with us anytime soon. September 14. We cannot do anything for you until then. September 14. You write to math advising, explain the case. Don't write pages because we don't want to read pages. Write a paragraph or two, brief explanation and what is your case, blah, blah, blah. Because in some cases, you don't require a Zoom meeting. In some cases, they can be resolved on an email. In some cases, we will tell you, go ahead and retake this placement part, or you need to take this placement part. We are missing this course and so on. So explain, brief explanation in the email. Wait for the response. We are going to receive hundreds of emails. It might take a couple days before we get back to you. Don't keep emailing because we work from the bottom of the inbox. And if you keep emailing, your email gets put on top of the inbox, and you will not get a response anytime soon. Wait for the response. One of you, depending on if you need to meet about the regular calculus, upper level classes, 180s, and so on, one of you will get back to you. One of us will get back to you and say, do this, and then let's schedule the Zoom meeting. And here are the options for the Zoom meeting. Here's the Google Calendar, and you choose your dates, or here's the couple options for the waiting room and so on. And then you get to meet with us. And then let's say you're coming to me and you want to be dropped down from 152 to 151. I'm going to look at your placement scores. I'm going to first see the placement scores, and then I'm going to make a decision, and I will talk to you about your background. I'm going to make a decision. And the answer can be both yes or no. Some of you will be like, okay, I'm dropping you down. Some of you will be like, no, I'm not dropping you down. You go and stay in 152. And you take advantage of the office hours and the core tutors and so on. And sometimes I will tell you, you know what? I am not even sure based on the placement scores because you're right in between. I want you to go sit on the class. I want you to do the first homework and bring those scores back to me. And then let's make a decision. Okay, so that's how it works, at least for me. But a lot of, Professor Boller and Professor Kanyes are going to be doing the same thing.
See, mine is happier in the sense that if you're coming to me, it's probably because you want to take the 160s or something higher, and then good, I want to talk to you and let's find out if that's the right thing to do. I love opening invitations to people to try out the 160s. So yeah. There are a couple of questions here about the econ major, and we haven't really talked about the econ major a lot, except in passing via a couple of the courses. Let's just mention, because there might be many of you who want to do that or some variant on it. There are two varieties of the econ major at Chicago now. There's the business econ major that requires not so much math, but the standard econ major does require a fair amount of math. And so what are those courses? That would be the standard 150s sequence, 151, 152, 153, followed by two courses, one of which is the mathematical methods for economic analysis. And again, that's the one it was on over there to the left, and I circled it in light green. It's a course in multivariable calculus, but with a focus on optimization in several variables environment. And then the second course after that would be the linear algebra course. And so there's essentially 5 math courses that make up the math content for the econ major. I think they ask that you take 15250, that fourth one, before starting econometrics and micro in the second year, right? So you want to get going on your math. You don't want to delay the math. Don't come back as a fourth year and just taking linear algebra to check a box. No, you should take the linear algebra early so that you can use it in your econ courses. But right, so the standard econ major, there's the 150s followed by 15250, the optimization course, and linear algebra, the 5th course. But having said that, double majoring, let's say, in math and econ is very possible. And if you were inclined that way, if you are talented enough at math and interested enough in math, then you should think of it differently. You should think of it as like, well, maybe I'm an econ major, but maybe I'm also a potential math major, in which case you should act like a math major and take the math 160s instead of the 150s. And if that goes well, then you might take analysis in your second year. And if you've taken the analysis and our abstract linear algebra course, then those all substitute for the required courses in the econ major. So I would say that if let's say you're an econ major, but you're tempted or potentially a math major, that we've engineered one of our versions of our degrees, the BS in mathematics. It's the BS in mathematics with specialization in econ. And so there's a certain set of courses that you take that allows for the double major more easily. So that's a very popular major. We have nearly 100 people doing that version of the math major, probably because they're double majors already. So So related question for an econ major, what's your most likely first math class? I guess I would say it's one of the 150s. So if you get a 151 placement, great, start there. If you get a 152 placement, great, start there. If you get a 153 placement, I would say do that first and then 152, 150, and 196. I think that would make a very nice set of three courses for your first year. Let's see. Gosh, does 160 satisfy economics? Well, yes. What I was saying, essentially, the 160-123 sequence would substitute for the 150-123 sequence, right? If I'm so best as long as we're talking about the 160s, I'll try to answer some questions related to that, right? So if you're placed into honors calc and I'm worried about it, is there anything you can do to prepare? Well, no, not really. Um, it's going to be math done differently. And the reason you're in there is because you're going to learn how to do proofs, and we're going to guide you through that. And you're going to see some calculus topics that you've seen before. You've seen a lot of calculus that you've seen before, but from a computational point of view. And we're going to do the theory side. But so is everybody else in there. One of the things that we definitely hear from students in the second and third week is that, oh, everybody else already knows how to do proofs. No, no, no. If they already knew how to do proofs, they'd be at a higher level course. Um, of course, you're coming to a high octane kind of place here at the University of Chicago, and we're going to offer you some good challenging courses, but you're in the right boat. You got in the door and you got invited to the 160s. Try it out.
Yeah, and I would just add go to office hours right from the beginning. If you're feeling like you kind of want a bit of extra help, we expect instructors deliberately assign material where they're thinking many students are going to be coming to office hours. So don't view that as only to be done in the case of emergencies. It should be like a routine thing for most students.
John,
Sticking with the one, oh, go ahead.
can I just quick share my screen real quick?
Yeah.
Point something out. There were several questions about, what's required for a particular major, and I just want to show folks how they can navigate to that. Okay, so if you're in the college catalog, which is just collegecatalog.uchicago.edu, go to programs of study and you'll see all of the different academic departments. I'm looking at data science as an example just to show you, but if you go to summary of requirements, that's going to typically show you if there are any specific courses that you need to take for the core. In this case, for data science, there is for math, and you can see all the different options. If you are pursuing a major that does not have particular requirements for the core, and you just want to look at what your options are for fulfilling the math requirement for the core, that would be under the core mathematical sciences. And there's a whole list of alternative options here as well. You can also definitely talk about this with your academic advisor during your one-on-one appointment.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, that can be the college catalog is a little dry. I'll just warn everybody if you're going to go in there, it's a lot of language and a lot of boxes and requirements and so on. And when you're looking at that, like those numbers, 200, 300, right? Those are we think in terms of units. 100 units is the standard course at the University of Chicago, and you need 4,200 units in order to graduate. So that's what those units are. And a certain number of them go to the core, and a certain number of them go in the major, and then it's a certain number of free electives and so on. But that's what those numbers represented. Yeah. All right, let's see if we can make some headway on this. Gosh. Okay, talking about some of these tests. Again, back to the higher level test for a second. So if you're invited to take the higher level test, you are not obligated to. If you're happy with your placement already, great. Sign up for whatever your placement already is. That's no problem. If you do take the higher level test, and let's say you get one step up to say Math 159.10 or something like that, which is our proofs course, you're not obligated to take that either. You can, even no matter what happens on the higher level test, you always have the placement that you already have. That is always an option for you. Number of students, I
but
think
you
something like 1,000 of you are going to get invited to take it. And probably at the end of the day, several hundred of you will, I hope.
but John, if you're let's say your original placement is 153, etc., and you take the high level test and you had an invitation to honors calculus, but then you place into analysis, you can't still take honors calculus. You
Oh,
can
sure. I
still
would
take
let
your
somebody do
one.
that.
You would still let them take honors
I would let
calculus,
somebody do that. If somebody wanted to take
even if
honors calc.
even if they placed into honors analysis, you'd let them take honors calculus,
Oh, maybe not. If you're that good. I mean, if you're one of those 11, yeah,
right?
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can always do your 153, right? You can always do that level, but I think the other thing might be a conversation.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. So I think we've just answered that one. Let's see. Difference between the 150s and 160s. I mean, 150s is going to feel like a high school calculus class, except you Chicago style, so faster and more problem sets, and like there's a lot. It's packed in, but it's going to feel like a standard class where you're going to calculate integrals and you're going to do right. Whereas 160s doesn't feel like that, and it's hard to describe if you haven't experienced it. But it's the way mathematicians do math. Like how do oh you're actually worried much more about the particular oddball case where you've got an example of a function that is continuous but not differentiable, or it's like how do you deal with things like that, or some you know uh, function that's continuous nowhere but somehow still integrable. What? That's what's in the 160s, right? It's almost about the pathologies, right? In some sense. How many students take the 160s? Yeah, like about 300 of you, right? Out of 2,000 or so of you, I'd say at least 300 of you will probably wind up choosing the 160s, and we are very happy about that. We love the 160s. We love people who want to eat. And look, just because you take the 160s doesn't mean you have to be a math major, but it's a special opportunity. There aren't a lot of universities that offer courses like this. Yeah. Let's see. Sarah, do you see anything else here in the Q&A, or Santiago?
So I saw something that I thought maybe Santiago should answer, and now I'm not finding it again.
I've answered a few via the
Okay,
typee,
maybe
so
you may, yeah. So
there's
maybe
a
you
chance that it
answered
might,
it
yeah.
already.
So
Yeah.
okay, so back to honors calc again, 160s again. We do want to sell you on it because we think it's great. What percentage of honors calculus students get invited to honors analysis? Right. So when we were joking earlier that maybe 10 or 11 or 12 of you would actually be invited directly to honors analysis on the basis of the higher level test, well, who else takes honors analysis then? Well, I would say approximately 20 to 25 students who did really well in honors calculus. But we have 12 sections. So that means, like, are you the best or second best student in your honors calculus course? And so I don't want to make it sound like a competition, but the point is that if you have mastered the honors calculus, the 160s, not just gotten an A, but like really just on top of it, that's who gets invited to honors analysis. Difference between the 130s and 150s, I mentioned at the front end of the program. They're both fairly standard paths through calculus. It's just that the 130s is for students where, again, on our placement test, we observed weakness in the pre-calculus stuff, some of that algebra, trig, pre-calculus type stuff. And that's what the 130s offer is it's a 6 hour a week class, 3 hours of lecture and 3 hours of problem sessions so that there's time to take our time and do the extra work to get up to where the full calculus year needs to be. We think, in some sense, that by the end of the year, you should roughly be in the same place as the 150s. And that 133 should serve as the same prerequisite for anything that 153 would. I feel like I've answered the difference between honors calc and regular calc. I think I've already answered that one. No, I think I did that one. Let's see. Anybody should jump in here because I'm just trying to.
So
I think
John,
we
there's
should. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, there's a question from a transfer student about whether or not they should take the higher level placement exam if they're already gotten credit for 159.10.
Oh, no, probably not. Well,
I mean, is there any reason? I guess the only reason is if you wanted to somehow get into honors analysis.
I guess if you were gunning for honors analysis, then that
Yeah,
would be a reason to try to, a way that could help convince us that you're ready
yeah,
for honors analysis is to take that higher level test. Yeah.
because everything else is already open to you.
I'm going to start for the oldest one. Pursuing economics alongside math, should they do BA in math and BA in econ, or BS in math spec econ? BS in math spec econ is going to be your option. Much better than the 2BA.
It just meshes better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it possible to start in 153 with a placement on AP and a bunch of different scores on a placement test? 153 must be your placement. Or if you have placement in 152 and you convince me you belong to 153, you may start in 153, but you do need to have placement into 153. If you have option between 160s and 150s, the best econ students go through 160s. The regular econ students go through 150s, and it's completely fine. And it's completely fine to start in 151. There was a question whether it's fine to start with 151.
There's two related questions here. So one is it okay to start in 151 if you want to major in econ? Yes, absolutely. 151, 152, 153. Next year, 152, 50, 196. Great. But the related question was if you're choosing between 160s and 150s, but the particular person who wrote that question said, if you're, interested in higher level math courses, wait, then that changes it. Then no, don't take the 150s. The best way to get into higher level math courses is to take the 160s. Should an economics major take 152 or 161 or 152.50? Well, very few people will have those three options. And 152.50 is a higher level course than 152. So if you have a 152.50 option, great. Take that and you'll get the 152 credit. But if you have a 152 placement, you're not ready for 152.50 yet. 161 is then separate, right? Because that's an invitation. And yeah, again, we would encourage you to try that, but you're not under any obligation.
If you enroll in 153 in August, but then get invitation to 160s and you still want to do it, yes, you can still switch. You can totally do it.
And if necessary, we can help you switch, but yeah.
For math degree requirements, what does three-quarter sequence mean? That the actual sequence consists of three-quarters courses, like 160s consists of 161, 162, 163. Analysis is 203, 204, 205. Yes, that means that you have to take three courses in the sequence. So it's usually the same digits, like 151, 152, 153. It's a three-course calculus sequence. 180s is four course, 183, 4, 5, 6, but you don't have to take all of them. Different majors, different requirements.
There is a question from a transfer student about 160s, and I will say that I would like to somehow address the transfer students better, but 160s can be an awkward place for a transfer student to start because you probably don't have 4 years here at the University of Chicago. So if you're coming in as a second year, or especially as a third year, and let's say you want to be a math major, you don't have time to start in the 160s, unfortunately. And that's actually why we have a course called 159.10. It is meant for people who are transitioning to higher level math from, let's say, a 150s background or a transfer student background or somewhere where, wait a minute, or 180s background or something. I've already taken a bunch of math. I'm not a first year anymore. I don't have time to go back and take the 160s. That's what 159.10 is about. It's about getting you back on path for some more theoretical upper level math courses. And I think 159 could wind up being a good fit for a transfer student who might have had some multivariable calculus, might have had some linear algebra, some differential equations, which are all great standard courses in a math major almost anywhere but here. And so 159 is the one that would then get you ready for analysis the way we do it. And if you think you don't have time for the 160s. That said, if you're a transfer student coming in as a second year, 160s could still work out. And so that might be a really nice place to start.
If you get into 2017, you take 20250, yes. Yes, you do. So you do need to take it that first quarter. So that would be taking 2 math classes.
We realize that that is not an ideal situation, but that is the way. You really do need to have Math 20250, the linear algebra, before taking 208.
Would office hours be oversubscribed, packed? Are there any other support systems, programs that students might be able to use for math?
Which course?
Before midterms and finals, yeah, office hours will be very busy. But otherwise, professors are very open. You should be able to get into office hours. 130s have tutorial system support. There is core tutors for 150s and so on. So it depends on your course. But office hours, you should be able to get into the professor's office hours.
And maybe I should just add that most professors hold office hours where they're just open and everybody comes in. It's not like you're going one at a time and you're going to run and you're going to time out. Usually students are also talking to themselves, maybe if there's quite a few students, to each other, if there's quite a few students there working on things. So if there's too many people for the professor's room, then they book a larger one.
Yes. What are some cases that you are rejected to drop down one level in 150s? Your placement is too high. Or you simply did too well. I have cases that you took 152 or 153 in the autumn, or I guess 152, and you want to be dropped down to 133 in the winter instead of taking 153, but your grade was A-. You're not going to be dropped down. Your placement is too high, your grades are too high. You don't belong to that lower level population.
So what about if we're talking about somebody who right now placed into the course and wants to know whether you might say, no, you can't go down to 151 if it's like in this initial period? Are there instances where you would say?
I'm looking at your placement. I'm looking mostly at your placement. I will ask you some questions, but I'm mostly looking at your placement. If you're really close to threshold, upper level threshold, you're not going to be dropped down. I will want you to try that course that you belong to, try it out. If you try and you do the first homework and it goes horribly, and I'll check it with your professor and they're like, oh, no, then yes, you still can be dropped down. But I don't want you to automatically go and bomb everything and then think that you can still get down. Because what can happen is that, let's say you start 153, it doesn't go well. That doesn't mean you will get dropped down to 152. I might say, okay, take 153 in the winter, and then let's talk again. It's not automatic drop down.
Different question in the Q&A here, possibly related. The question, if you take 151, can you still go to the 131 tutoring sessions? Well, no, then just take 131 instead. Question about credit. So one thing, as much as we've been talking up the Math 160s, the honors calculus, you do have to start in 161. You can't start in 162. First of all, we don't even offer it in the autumn. Second, 162 absolutely requires you to have taken 161 and to have mastered that material the way that we do it, not because you've seen some piece of calculus before. But 161 and 162 do not then give you credit for 150s or anything like that. 161 and 162 are your core math, and then you go on to 163 and so on after that. But you are, let's say you've got, a 153 placement right now, but a 161 invitation. If you take 153 and succeed, you'll get credit for 151 and 152. But if you take 161, which I'm encouraging many of you to do, you don't get that 151 and 152 credit. The 161, 162 courses that you actually take here will replace the 151 and 152 credit, but you don't also get the 151 and 152 credit.
What are the specific topics? So we have a math department or math major or just math course catalog page. There is a description of every course that is offered by the math department, including descriptions in 150s, 180s, analysis, and so on, and the topics that are being covered. So you can go ahead and read. In general, it's a calculus 3, so it's going to be series and sequences, and then you will get into multivariable.
There's a question here. Maybe Carrie, this might even be for you. Is it okay to take 151 as a neuroscience major? Sure, I think, right? Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say, go take a look at that catalog page. We'll share if that's one of the options for the neuroscience major. But I was going to elaborate a little bit on the pre-health, pre-med question. Later in the summer, you will have contact with pre-health, but please do raise this with your academic advisor and let them know if you are somebody who's interested in going the pre-health, pre-med route, especially if you are looking at a major that is not typically associated with those. So if you're a history major and you want to go pre-health, pre-med, that's really important to mention because it does affect the courses that you're going to enroll in the first year.
Let's see. There's a question about econ majors here for if you're would taking 161, 162, 150, 250, and then 163 make sense. It would not because we don't offer 163 in the autumn.
No, the sequence 161 in the autumn, 162 along with 152, 50 in the winter, and 163 in the spring. If you take 160s and continue into analysis sequence your second year, econ department will take that. You don't have to take 152, 50 or 153.
204, the second quarter of analysis would essentially replace 152, 50. So I think that's what I would recommend. Right. Can you take things alongside honors analysis? Oh, please don't. No. Honors analysis should be, you're already taking, no.
Unless you're Gauss.
Yeah. Or let's say third quarter and you've knocked it out of the park in the first 2 quarters. Well, we'd at least be open to the conversation.
Yeah. We need some evidence first. Substantial evidence.
Here's a question. How can Math 159, the 1 quarter proofs course, compress all the proof writing that we do in the 160s in 3 quarters? It can't. It's a workaround. It's not meant to do all of the 160s. It's okay, let's at least focus on the proofs part, even if we're not proving the same theorems. Let's prove other results about convergence and about using the least upper bound property to establish certain analysis results and so on, right? You couldn't do that. That wouldn't work. An accelerated analysis versus regular or honors. Oh, okay. We're going to have another webinar in September to talk about that. So after the higher level test, we're going to have another one of these for everybody who took the higher level test. And what does your new placement option look like and so on. So we'll save that conversation for then.
This one is for me. If you place into 150s, can you drop down to 130s? If you place into 151, yes, you can be dropped down to 131. If you place into 152, you will not be going to 130s. I'm going to be Gandalf and you shall not pass. You shall not pass. Oh, this is one. Are you typing the answer for this one,
yes.
John? Okay.
I had a couple of questions about this green thing back here on my right there on my shelf also.
If you plan to major in econ and do honors calc, you should not need to be taking 15250. You do need to take then analysis sequence your second year. Once you get to 204, which is the second quarter of our analysis sequence, that content is like much higher version of anything that you can see in 150s, 15250. We do have students that take 160s and analysis sequences, and for just the fun of it, they do something called auditing on 15250 and only on the last 2 weeks when the students do linear programming. So they just get exposure to linear programming. But if you do 160s and our analysis sequence, you do not need to take 15250.
Or econ 152, 50, 196, that's a standard econ major, right?
Okay.
No,
if you place...
Again, if you're in 152, no, you can't go to the 131 sessions. If 131 sessions are for 131 students.
They are part of the registration system. When you
So I
register for
think
131 class, you register for main lecture and the tutorial, and it's only for those registered students. If you're 150 students, 151, 152, 153, that is not your registration. Those are small tutorials, and they're designed to be, those students are designed to be in a small groups to do small group learning. When you walk
so.
in,
It might.
they will check the attendance sheet, and if you don't belong to 131, they will say, don't come here.
So I think it would be worth mentioning, though, that for the first time this year, we will have several sections. We're not quite sure how many yet, but roughly 4 sections of 152 in the fall, in the autumn, and we think 153 in the winter, that will have tutorials attached to them, a 2-hour a week tutorial. So if you're interested in 152 with a little bit of extra support, you can watch out for those sections. I'm not sure, Yitka, if you can say how they're going to be able to identify them, or if we just don't know yet.
Right now, we don't know. And
Yeah.
it will be optional. It will not be, 130s are
Yes.
required. They're required to go to
Yeah.
those tutorial sessions on Tuesday, Thursday, because
Yeah.
they take quizzes that are part of their grade. The 150s will be optional. And the normal 150 students all have option to go to core tutors that are administered to college advising to get group help or one-on-one help with the hired people within College of Advising that are specifically hired undergraduate students that can help anyone that's taking 150s.
I think we've been at this
running
for an hour and a
way
half. I
out of
think we're about
time,
to wrap
yeah.
this up. We do have 2 questions left that we'll answer. So please, though, don't put more in just now. But we will answer the 2 questions that remain in the Q&A. One, what type of students would you recommend 161.10 over 161.00? That is the IBL over the regular sequence. And I don't know that there's any, there's no way to know. We don't recommend one over the other. It's the style of the course is completely different. I guess I would say the IBL version, you have to go in as a willing participant. You can't be passive in an IBL class. You have to take your turns. You have to ask questions. You have to present your theorems and results. So if you are, and I guess in that sense, it requires at least a little bit of bravery to be standing at the board in front of your fellow students and to have to defend what you're arguing and admit that you're wrong potentially if oh, I didn't think about that, right? Yeah. Okay, so come back next time and we'll let somebody else have a turn. But
I would say that if you're somebody who really likes collaboratively learning with your fellow students, it could be a good choice. It's probably not for people who like doing everything by themselves.
I'll take this last one. Is it possible for a student who did not take AP Calculus BC or didn't take the test to get placed into 152? Absolutely. Not all of you even are coming from countries that AP BC Calculus is available to them, and they still get placed into 152. You get placed into 152 either by getting the 4 or 5 on the BC exam or by performing well on our online placement test. So if you just got placed there and you never took AP calculus of any form or any test, but you demonstrated on a placement test that is your knowledge that you belong there, then you belong there. And you start the class and see how it goes. And again, remember, this is UChicago. Many of you are coming when things were easy, very easy. It's okay to struggle a little bit. Everyone around you will struggle a little bit as you get adjusted to the quarter system, the speed of the class, the different environment in the classroom, the professors, and so on. We always say for math classes, if you struggle a little bit, you're at the right placement. If your homework takes about 10 hours a week, that's an average. If it takes 25 hours a week, you're either in honors analysis or you're in a wrong class. Okay? So take that first. You will not have a test on very first week. You will have a homework assignment. If it's taking about 10 hours, that's an average for you Chicago student to complete homework assignment in a math class. If it's taking less than that, either it's going to be easier class for you, you're in the right placement, or it might be way too easy if you're like, oh, I can do this in my sleep. You might be in a wrong class. If it's taking 25 hours, that's too much. Then you're in a wrong class and you need to meet with us through math advising and let's talk about your placement, okay? That is normal. 10 hours a week is normal to study. And as you get to much harder classes, it might be normal to study much more than 10 hours a week, but that's about what we look at. Okay.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
everybody. Thanks for sticking around and asking all the good questions there. We will, I think, Carrie, I'll let you have the final word about where they can access the recording and so on. But from our perspective, the math folks in the room, thank you, everybody, for listening.
And welcome to Chicago.
Yeah.
We look forward to having you here in September.
Lovely. Well, thanks to our lovely hosts. And as John alluded to, this will be recorded and saved on the summer webinar series webpage, the same webpage that you accessed when you registered. So if you need to go back and rewatch anything, you're totally welcome to do that. It's usually up within a day or two, so pretty quick turnaround. Thank you again.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks.